So the data shows that the Australian patient loves THC, that they want THC, high potency THC. But is that really what Australians want? And is that what the mass want, to be able to get us to capturing more of the market? Or is that just a symptom of a market that's yet to mature? We're going to have a look at a case study today on Dadgrass from the USA. And to copy their tagline for a minute, we're talking about low dose, full toke, CBD flower, like your parents used to smoke. High living with Chad. Let's go. Let's take you straight in. We're talking about CBD flower, and we're going to go into a number of different points about this. High Living with Chad, episode 30. First and foremost, we need to give a shout out to Seth Yakatan on LinkedIn, because today we're going to be looking at a company that bucked the trends in the USA. And I think there's many lessons here for the Australian market and for other emerging markets over the world that are less mature than the American market. Plus, there's other factors that we need to be looking at that you're going to hear about today, because I don't think it's just the case of, oh, do we have preferences between high potency THC and low dose CBD, whether or not that comes in a balm and oil. But today we're going to be looking at a flower. I don't think it's just about that. I think there's another major factor that needs to be considered. And then there's a few other areas that we're going to go into, which are more macro level around, well, do patients even know about this, right? And what's the regulation governing all this? And there's a few holes in that as well, which we're going to go into today in some detail. But first and foremost, let's do the numbers on Dadgrass over in the USA. As I said, they're bucking the trend, so they're not going down that usual pathway, which is available in the USA, of you as an individual going in to a dispensary to purchase your goods. They're going direct to customer, and they're doing that because they're in compliance with federal regulation. It's hemp-derived CBD flower that they're giving to you. And as mentioned before, their tagline is low dose, full toke, like your parents used to smoke. Think about that. How good is it? Let's do the numbers as I said before. If you're going to be getting some flower, let's talk about half an ounce. You're getting half an ounce of flower for $88 US. And then if you're going to get some pre-roll, we're looking at $70 a pop for a little pack of pre-rolls that you can take around with you wherever you want, and you can be enjoying that. And the whole idea, you'll be doing that, getting some relief, and there'll be certain indications which this would speak to considerably, i.e. anxiety, plus just the recreational, social individual that wants to consume a different option, or to be bloody cool about it as well, right? Like, think about this. I was in Europe 2 years ago, and I was at a beach in Croatia. And I just, the Balkan breakfast, it's a cigarette and a really strong black, dark coffee. And so when you go down the beach, the coffee vibe's there, the house music's pumping, and everyone's just there smoking on cigarettes. And I remember I said to someone in on Tracker, I mentioned, man, imagine if we just replaced all this for CBD flower, right? So you're getting a little bit of a buzz. You're getting that little bit of a buzz, which is probably going to help with depression, right? Probably going to boost some creativity, probably going to boost levels of irritation and stress, support you to become more relaxed. Interesting findings today as well, that like if you had, and no surprise about this, right? You can go back to biblical times to know that the day of the Sabbath, now they're saying that 1 day a week of just resting is actually good for you. A little bit of ancient wisdom coming back into modern society, and we'll label that as science that's guiding us there. Yeah. So let's continue cracking ahead. Some of you may not want to go there with me. Yeah. So CBD flower. I'm interested right now. Is this something that you would enjoy? Is this something that you think should be more available? Because if we do the numbers, let's pull up. If you're in Australia at the moment, let's have a look. And if we're looking at category 1, 2, and 3, let's just pull some quick numbers. So over the past 4 years, we've seen around 10,000 prescriptions where CBD flower has been prescribed. 10,000 over 4 years. 2.5 a year, probably growing as well, right, as we're seeing. Top 3 indications, be mindful, anxiety, pain, and sleep. Now, prescribing CBD flower for pain, anyone with pain, unless you're utilizing that with a much stronger THC, I would be interested to see how, the efficacy and how helpful a CBD flower would be for chronic pain. Now, open, as I said before, to see if there were some different synergies that could occur. So it could be part of your regimen. There's no doubt about it. But if I'm looking at targeting pain, I don't think I'm going to be going for that CBD flower option. Yeah. Be mindful. The data that we're looking at is only through SASB. So there's a whole lot of information that we're losing from authorized prescribers. So just be mindful of that. And at this point, let's now look over to see high potency THC and particularly looking at flower or inhalation. So during the same period of time, which is 4 years, the indications that we're seeing, remember before it was anxiety, pain, and sleep. Now we're seeing pain, anxiety, sleep, right? So pretty similar indications, right? This time we've seen 100,000 scripts written for the high potency THC. Now, as mentioned before, something like pain or sleep as well can probably understand. But that key area of anxiety would be very, very interested to see how effective CBD flower could be. Because think about it. Say you're anxious, you've got fast relief. If you're utilizing flower, you got fast relief. And I know, okay, listen, people are going to be like, oh, you can't be using dry flower through a joint like you're talking about in the USA when you're talking like, Chad, that's illegal. Well, come on. Anyone who's saying that we've got 100% legitimate market at the moment needs to just have a serious think, because there's multiple ways that this could be consumed. And CBD flower, organic, outdoor grown into a joint for that anxiety, for that population with anxiety, or for potentially a population with ADHD, or for depression, or the big one coming in here, where I don't think it's a battle between just a prescription of THC and CBD. Let's think about the amount of people that are vaping nicotine in Australia at the moment, right? And if we want to start seeing some holes in this whole landscape, if you're vaping nicotine at the moment, or you see someone, I was back in Australia last year, and how many people are doing that, right? And they say that every one of those individuals at the moment is getting that vape from a doctor via a prescription. Please, that's not happening. And that's not being governed at all, right? Because have a look and just go out this weekend and just see how many people are hitting those vapes. Then have a look at the population, right? Then if you do have a look at that population, look how accessible it is, look how it becomes a habit, and then look how often individuals are doing that. So we've come in and we've come from a place, let's think way back, right? So let me give you this, and it's going to show my age. 20 years ago, I was over in Peru, one of my first trips overseas, and I went into a bank. Lady in there was smoking a cigarette. One of the first times my eldest brother, he's 6 years older than me, when he went on a plane, he was flying with Garuda Airlines, an Indonesian airline. I think he was going from Bali to London. He sat in a smoking section of a plane. Think about Mad Men. Think about where cigarettes have been in culture, and now we've got the replacement. And what's come along? Vapes. And what can you do? You can do it anywhere. So you can do it at work, have people doing it on the plane, have people doing it everywhere. So the pattern and the habit of this seriously needs to have some questions around it. Yeah. So if we're looking at that population, what happens if we don't just focus on CBD versus THC and we start going, hey, you're out there vaping this, and who knows what else is in it? And for whatever reason you're doing it, what happens if we just take 10% of those individuals and then bring them over with a CBD flower? What is that going to do? I think that's a major plus. And so to get there, one of the biggest things that we need to look at, I think, is education. And that's why we're doing this. I want you to be educated with the option, right? Because we got to think, Australia isn't a mature market as yet. And the way cannabis is consumed is not reflective of a market that is matured. And we can go into that in other times. It's still the novelty. The novelty's there. Everyone's jumping from flower to flower and it's all the rage and fantastic. Everyone's enjoying it and as they should be. But as this market matures, we're going to need other options. And one of the key factors to this is if we go back to the categories before, right? So category 1, 2, and 3, where we see 10,000 prescriptions for CBD, we know there's only 468 prescribers via SASB. Could be some APs as well. So let's be mindful of that. 468. Now let's go to the high potency THC and we've got 2,000 prescribers. Yeah. So 468 prescribers for a CBD flower, and we've got almost 2,000 prescribers for high potency THC. What does that say? One, we need better options in Australia. So we need licensed producers to get behind this more. We need doctors to be able to say, hey, I'm going to learn how to prescribe and I need more information. And wow, look at the effects that I'm now seeing from running a real world data study or collecting some information via a credible and independent source, and then being able to work out what are these actual outcomes that we're seeing and how beneficial can it be, right? The other major factor is you as a patient demanding and showing with your buying and purchasing power as a patient what you want. And if you think, hey, I'm enjoying my THC, who doesn't? Yeah. But what happens if you add in something else? And it could be a midweek or it could be the weekends, or you could just have that slight little variation to say, what would that be like and how do I feel? We would love to know what that is like, because this is a hypothesis at the moment, learning some lessons from the US market. But the big opportunity is to have a look at how this can reshape the audience, which means who is consuming medical cannabis in Australia. Yeah. And then how do we increase that volume? Because if we're getting individuals into high quality products, grown outside, organic, CBD flower, getting them off vapes with all sorts of things in it, which aren't regulated, and getting them off potentially high potency THC, particularly for individuals with anxiety. And if you have too much, you get a bit more anxious. So what happens if we're able to touch that, still get fast relief? And what does that then do to identity? Because I would have to say, I'm not going to inhale anything because of my past and my lungs. But if I could be, I'll be sitting here right now with some CBD flower in my hand. Yeah. This was Higher Living with Chad. One thing we're going to ask you, if you've liked this, what would be helpful is just hit subscribe, or to share this with someone else. If you're coming back on a regular basis, we thank you for your time. We thank you for coming in. We know there's so many options that are available on here. So we do appreciate you coming on. If there's one person that you could share this with, please do it. Hit subscribe, like. It's High Living with Chad, brought to you by On Tracker. Thank you very much.